Huh? Yeah. Hey, welcome. Welcome. So, hold on, let me get
We've got a little roadmap review of what our plan is.
Yeah. So today we're gonna start with a little centering exercise, get us all in together, and then we'll have a little story or metaphor, and then we'll review the homework, both the appreciation showers that we did and also the work table, and then we're going to talk. The meat of today is going to be about the communication exercises or tools that we have available to us. So we're going to be going through 5 super powerful tools.
Models, yeah.
Models and how to use those. You guys will be familiar with most of them or maybe all of them, but we'll go through those in some detail. And then we will set up homework, let you choose one of those communication tools for the homework, and we'll guide you through that. And then we'll have a closing circle with the takeaways like we always do.
And we'll have an opening circle. So right now we're going to do a little centering, and then I'm going to ask you to come through with just like 2 words to transmit your energy into this little cyber circle. So straighten your spine, close your eyes, make some micro adjustments so that you can feel your roots delving into the earth. And as you breathe up, allow the trunk of your tree of life, like the core of your being, to lift towards the cosmos. So you're pulling nutrients up from the earth. And then allow your branches to start to extend out around the heart center. Just like the arms reach out, there's energetic cords to everyone you love and everyone that loves you. Allow yourself to expand as you deepen your breath. So you're expanding both beneath the earth into the underworld and through the heart up towards the cosmos, out into all of your connections, all of your relations. And as you're breathing through this tree of life, notice how your roots, your tree roots, are deeply nourished by your partner's tree roots. So you feel the connection that you have that's beyond the physical. And notice too how there's energetic cords connecting at the heart or maybe at the sex chakra. There's various points of contact between your energetic bodies. And I invite you to call in guidance, support, inspiration from your allies. As we open this circle, we're calling on all energies that are equal to or higher than this collective vibration. So we're really opening to a greater love, a greater source for a high frequency of unconditional love. And we're including the authentic, the wounding, the shadow, the challenge. We're welcoming all of that in. Take a few breaths to really accept whatever's true in your ecosystem. And then distill this down to 1 or 2 words, actually 2 words. They can even contrast but try to crystallize the felt sense that you're having about all your relations, about your heart, your relationship to self, to your partner, to the world. One or two words right now. Last deep breath and let out some sound on the exhale. Thank you. So I'd love to have you check in, and I'll start with acceptance and wonder.
Love and mystery.
Let's go in the order of who logged on. So Tal.
I'm
gonna go turn that off.
Yeah. Presence and awareness.
Dredging the river.
Did you say dredging?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. And Marina.
Sensitive and grateful.
Good. Greg.
Adversity and alchemy.
Jonathan.
Peaceful disappointment.
Kirsten.
Quiet and love.
Sweet. Sharmila.
Gratitude and
I can't hear Jane.
I said you guys were all overachievers with 2 words. I only got gooey.
Gooey.
That was
Good start.
Okay.
Lisa and Greg.
Love and distrust.
And shift and transition.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
All right. So, if we think of our our relationships that we have, I like to think of them as a vehicle. So that it can be an old beat up truck that you drive, or it can be a Ferrari, or it can be something like that. We have tools that we use to work on our car. Let's say you have a hammer, right? And you're trying to work on your car, and you're a carpenter. You've been like hammering, boards into this, into a building your whole life. And that's the only tool that you have. When you look at your, relationship, and if you only have a hammer, then everything starts to look like a nail, to you. And that's the only tool. If that's the only tool that you have, it makes it much more difficult, obviously, because you're seeing the problem in a certain way because of the tool that you have. By opening up to more tools, we start to be able to see the problem, very differently. And so, in the car metaphor, in the car, sometimes we'll have a little toolkit in the trunk that we carry around. It has a screwdriver and a wrench, and maybe a couple of tools, and it's very limited. If you take the car to the shop, that's where they've got that big red toolbox, the one with the drawers, and it has all of the the ratchets and the all of the sockets and everything else that could possibly use, and it has electrical stuff, and all of this stuff in the toolbox. So what we're going to talk about today is basically those tools in the context of looking at what tools we have to communicate, so that we can make the relationship run really well. So it can be either the Ferrari or the the very well-tuned car, so that it can drive well, and that's going to give us the opportunity to go into the deeper work later. So if you have a flat tire, or if your car is sputtering or smoking, it's going to be harder to go into those deeper places later.
Yeah, to extend this very mixed metaphor, I wanted to add that this is a maintenance call. Like, there's a difference between taking your car into the shop because it has, like a check engine light, there's a problem. This is more like, oh, we're just doing what are the tools to fix to regularly keep the oil up and the gas up and, all the other coolants and levels right. So this month we're going to talk about healthy communication when things are flowing and harmonious, whereas next month we're going to talk about conflict resolution. And, we really felt into this group, and it's quite, we're quite an advanced group. And so we're able to look at some of many of the best teachings on healthy communication. When we look at it at a high level, we can actually find what is it that makes them, the synergy of putting all these different models together can take us to another level, as opposed to just using one communication model. So we're already assuming that we're, using I statements, not name calling, not, we're not going into the like this is how we communicate when we're broke down or unconscious. But at the high conscious levels, how do we keep the love levels high, the reserves up? And so, we've chosen 5 models to offer, and we're going to review those, starting with. Starting with a review of last week's homework. So that's where we're headed. Here's what I want to say. I don't, raise your hand just so I can see who did the work table, actually wrote what you wanted to do. So pretty much everyone, some of you didn't, no problem. It's actually the start of ongoing, this is like the beginning of something that's a year-long process. So even if you did the homework, it's just a rough draft. And I say that, some of you might have had a lot of challenge, because basically, Michael and I had challenge when we were doing it, because we're like, wow, now I'm saying this is what I'm working on, this is what I want you to work on, and that can really be, it can feel like criticism. It can feel like it's oh my gosh, there's a lot of work. I'm not enough. Stuff can come up for you. It's not an agreement that you have to work on those things. What we're doing is we're laying it all out on the work table, and we're saying we're going to go through a year-long process in which each month we'll just work on one of these pieces. So we're literally chunking it down, but you don't need to know today what you're going to be working on in February. What you need to know today, by the end of this call, is what you'll be working on in the area of communication this month. So we're going to go through these 5 models, and you're going to be listening and self-assessing what your relationship needs. And then you personally will choose what is the most valuable thing that I can put my attention on in order to improve, to up-level our communication this month. That's the basic question. And we're giving you a palette of possibilities, but we really just want you to choose the most leveraged tool to work on this month. So,
and how, show of hands, how many of you did the appreciation showers?
Oh yeah, continued with the gratitude, what you're grateful for. Excellent.
Excellent. Okay.
Good. And that's particularly important to keep the love levels high when you're doing the work. Excellent. Okay, so having reviewed that, we can go into the first model. Many of you know, in fact, I think this is Greg's buddy. Greg knows
Don Miguel Ruiz and the 4 Agreements. I saw a picture of you, Greg, with him.
Yeah, I had breakfast with him a couple weeks ago.
Nice. What does Don Miguel Ruiz eat for breakfast?
Vegetarian.
Yeah,
of course. Absolutely. I would have expected nothing less.
So we printed this out, but we posted them on the group. So this is just to show you that
just so you get a chance to
read it backwards,
to see it. Be impeccable with your word is the first one, and being impeccable with your word, for me, it's a trust building, part. As being polyamorous, honesty is one of the basic precepts of of being poly, and to have trust within the relationship. There can't be cheating, basically. We have to be honest, and doing things that the other person wants, and all of that. And so being impeccable with our word, especially in relationship, is just that, it keeps building up that foundation of trust, within the relationship.
Beautiful. And number 2 is not to take anything personally. And this is such a gift. If I can make a vow to not take things personally, what I'm saying is I give you permission to feel your full experience, to be yourself, and I'm not going to go codependent with you. Like that's that really powerful sovereignty piece.
Mm-hmm. And the third agreement is don't make assumptions. And the only assumption that is valuable is if you're giving the benefit of a doubt to someone, which will help to build and deepen the relationship. But it's important that we ask questions if we're not sure, not to just make an assumption and live that way, but really to ask those questions that open it up so that we can really know what's happening, and really know what we're dealing with in the relationship. So it's important to have those type of deep conversations, emotional conversations that get rid of some of the assumptions that we have and the walls that we put, between us.
Yeah. So the fourth agreement is to always do your best. And here's the beauty of this. Like, we all just made this vow to release our inner critic. And part of keeping the inner critic moved out is actually not beating ourselves up or having regrets because we didn't do our best. So like, if we really want to keep him at bay, then it's like, I'm going to show up when I'm given a task, or when I say yes to it, I'm going to play full out, do it. And then if my partner's criticizing me, I don't even take it personally because I know I've done my best. They're doing the best they can. It just creates a field of acceptance. And so with these 4 agreements, we wanted to start with this model because it's really like, this is a model of doing self-work that raises our vibration and makes our relationship communication healthy. Like, it's a foundational piece. And I want to, just for the sake of your mind going, yeah, I know this already, I want to share what the other models are. So this is the first model that we're choosing to say, hey, if you don't already know this, internalize it, master it, then put these up on your bathroom mirror, just as a reminder. But the other models are
five love languages.
Yeah, the 5 love languages, which I know is like
from Gary Chapman.
And then there's the NVC, which is Marshall Rosenberg's.
It's nonviolent communication, or compassionate.
Communication. So we're going to talk about his 4 steps,
mm-hmm.
And then there's.
And then to one up it, there's 6 steps with Tony Robbins.
And those aren't 6 steps. There's 6
needs,
basic human needs that we're going to go into.
Mm-hmm.
And then the final one is dyad. So we have 4 agreements, 5 love languages, and then it comes down
6
to
needs,
and then 2 people. But the reason we're doing these different models is because at different times, the relationship will need different things. And this is the best of what I believe relationships experts have to offer in communication. And if we learn these tools, then it's like you're going to stay out of the conflict that you have to resolve. So having said that, let's go ahead and talk about the 5 love languages.
Yeah. So the 5 love languages, actually there's a way that we can look at it. If we think of the 5 love languages as we'll use the taco metaphor. So the 5 love languages, words of affirmation. If you're thinking of a taco, you could say, hey, your tacos are delicious, right?
They're juicy and.
Yeah, they're juicy and fantastic. Acts of service would be, I made you tacos, right?
I cooked all day just for you.
And then, of course, the gift receiving gifts could be here. I bought a taco for you.
I took you to the taco truck.
Yeah. And if you guys haven't seen Trevor Noah's taco thing, you got to see it. It's great.
We
about
digress.
tacos.
We digress.
But quality time would be, hey, let's go out together and have some tacos, right? And then, of course, physical touch would be, let me hold you like a taco, or as I like to say, may I touch your taco? So the important thing about the 5 love languages, and I've got them right here just so we got a little visual on them as well. But it's important that we not just focus on the one love language that we think our partner is their love language. If the other ones get emaciated, it can be just as much of a problem. It's kind of like the 4 tires on a car. You could focus on one, but if any of the other ones are not taken care of, there could be problems within the system. I also like to think of them as having some overlaps where we have. And within our relationship, what I like to try to do is do things that take care of my need, which is needs for quality time, in a way that takes care of Kamala Devi's needs, which is needs for words of affirmation, and to do them with things that take care of both simultaneously. So that's
Yeah, I mean, the general public knows, hey, these are the 5 love languages. Do the assessment. Which one's your top one? And which one's your partner's top one? And one of the things, like Michael loves quality times, like these extraordinary retreats that we do together. But all in all, if you look at how Michael loves me, he builds stuff, he does stuff, like he does acts of service so naturally from his heart. It just flows from him, which is gorgeous. But it's not necessarily what I want. I'm like, I want you to see me and get me and listen to me, and that kind of. So know what is it that you're constantly trying to do. How do you show your love? Because that's also very valuable. Is wanting someone to receive. Michael, when he has a lover who appreciates the way that he loves, it lights him up. So that's the general wisdom. But I want to offer a little layer deeper, because there's a shadow to the love languages. Like, part of the reason that we're seeking to get this love language met is because we have a deficiency or a frozen need or a wound from childhood. And so each of those love languages will point to usually what your partner's pet peeve is, or irritation, or bottom line is. So if, for example, gift giving, like if you love getting gifts, if a partner forgets an anniversary or an opportunity to give a gift, then usually there'll be resentment or hurt. If you love words of appreciation, then you got to be really careful not to criticize or say anything negative, because that person will, take that very personally and hold on to that. Usually they're trying to compensate for being criticized as a kid, and that's why they want words of appreciation. So there's a shadow, like quality time. If you're like, I love quality time, and your partner's distracted on their phone when they're with you, you might take that very personally. So be aware not only of, let me see it. I'll give you 2 more examples of the love language, but also the shadow of physical touch. For example, like right now I have a raging bladder infection, and like my yoni is off limits.
No tacos.
No tacos for you.
No Taco Tuesday.
So like that, because Michael's touch is so high on his love language. If I just said, oh no, like, and didn't figure out other ways to nurture him, physically, then there could be, real breakdown, real separation. Yeah. So it's really important when you know what your partner's love language is to be careful not to do the opposite. Yeah, go ahead.
There's a thing that I've been noticing as well. Like, it's these peak experiences are really my deepest love language, and I've been getting a lot of them met as I've been traveling with Devin. I'm going to Spain with Devin next week, and I've noticed that it fulfills a lot of that love need for me. And and it's a bit of a problem because it's kind of separating me from Kamala Devi. It's kind of like that thing about poly, being poly, getting your needs met with somebody else. It can actually atrophy the relationship. So I'm really doing a lot of work right now on making sure that I'm nurturing her love languages currently, and my own, so that we have that.
I'm glad you brought that up, because we are all poly. It's like, now that you've got the 5 languages here, it's also learning them for all our other partners and managing that. And it can get complex. And when we're talking about healthy communication, I'm basically saying these are the top 5 tools that the general public knows is the best of. But what is not generally out there is what is the best healthy communication about other lovers. There's just no teachings about that. So one of the healthy communication things is to ask your partner, how do you like to be updated? And, negotiating like, hey, when I do have experiences with other partners, do you want the bottom line? Do you want the intimate details? Would you like to just ask me? Like, usually rule of thumb is, hey, I've got an update from my date last night. When is a good time to update you? And not to just tell them when they're not ready for it, but to let them come and say, yeah, now I'm ready. I'd love to hear your update. But really let them come and ask you, as opposed to you being like, oh, I need to unburden myself, or I need to update you right away. We want to be resourced, and we especially want to be nurtured and connected here and feel secure before hearing about other lovers. So I know I'm a little bit off the map, but it felt like I had to throw that in there.
So so the third model.
Can I throw out just an observation on love languages real quick?
Of course.
Being long distance with Marina, touch and quality time is my primary love languages. But when we're together, that is absolutely fulfilled and met. When we're away from each other, there's no option for those to be met from her. So these other things jump to the top of the list. After, words of affirmation and gifts and those things that are possible from a distance become like lifeblood. So I think these love languages are also context dependent and situational.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really, really true, because a lot of us are, like I travel so much now that our relationship's almost like a long distance relationship, and that has its own dynamic. Is how do you get touch met and intimacy met? That's great.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. The next model of the third model is nonviolent communication. Okay. Or NVC. And this is it's a really deep and beautiful language. It's about a 2-year practice to really grok it and get it into its working form, and
which is the truth of any language. If you're going to learn any language, you want to give it 2 years. And we look at NVC like a whole new syntax, a way of seeing the world and making, and observing it and feeling it and making requests, and it takes a while.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, so here's the basic model. It has a number as well for basic things. But it's observations, feelings, needs, and then requests. And yeah.
What I want to say about this is one of the highest intelligences is being able to observe something without making a judgment of it. Like Krishnamurti, it's like that's the definition of enlightenment, when you can see something without immediately imposing your belief system on it. So this is why I say this thing about making observations and then saying, this is how when I see this, I feel this. And that puts me in touch with this deeper need, which requires a lot of self-knowledge. I have this deeper need, what I'm yearning for. And then I'm going to make a request without attachment. This is the process. It's a gorgeous process. But most of us, when we're out of balance, or when it comes to something we're needing from our primary partner, can't do that. So one upgrade that I learned was to not actually try to even say this is what I observed, But to start with, the story I'm telling myself is, so if you start off by just saying, okay, look, I've got this judgment, but I don't believe it. I know, at least I know it's not real. I don't know what reality is because my prefrontal cortex is shut down and upset. But at least I start off by saying, here's the story I'm telling myself. And what I feel is, and then you can share your feelings. Now, if your story is so fucking off base, it's not worth feeling like you're basically going to suffer unnecessarily around some fantasy. But when you tell yourself, hey, I'm having this story, these are my feelings, and what I really need is a hug, what I really need is reassurance, or I need to be your priority. Or now the richness of NVC, like this is the 2-year study, is the emotional intelligence to learn like this myriad of needs. Like they're like to really get in touch with the flavor and the frequency, like what humans are needing. And that's why we're going to teach next the 6 basic needs, is we want to simplify that shit. Because you could just spend so much time, like the distinction between, are you needing attention, or is it appreciation, or is that acknowledgement? Like there's like a subtle distinctions that make all the difference if you're a NVC geek. But in general, if you're doing well in your relationship and you have a secure attachment and you know that you and your partner are on the same team, then all you need to know is the basic 6 needs and to balance those out. So we'll go into those in a minute, but I wanted to see if there were any questions or comments about NVC first.
One of the things that I really liked about NVC is that there's a real emphasis on that there only takes one person to make a balanced, to create nonviolence. So it doesn't take both people. You can just one, if they understand the tools and how to use it, can make it, and which brings us back to this thing about it's really all within ourselves. Yeah. And I know that we're working in relationship context, and there is more than just ourselves. But if we can do that work within ourselves, it immediately transmits into the relationship.
Yeah, to underline this, you never want to come to your partner and be like, let me tell you what I feel, let me tell you what I need, request, if you haven't gotten empathy first yourself. So NVC is like, first it's a solo practice, and then once you're centered, once you're clear, then you come to your partner and you share that. And I've seen many people who've used NVC as fighting points, so they're actually fighting about the way that they're communicating, and I've done it myself. So that's a risk with NVC, and I've seen it quite often, actually. So we want to say, we want to simplify this system and say, what's the value to you that's applicable, right? We're not trying to turn you into like communication geeks. It's just more like, what can you and your partner agree to use that really works from the system? And there's 2 things. One is how making a request, like too often we go into relationship strategy, especially in poly, we'll go into like, oh, let's make an agreement. Let's have an agreement. Well, is that agreement actually based on your underlying need? Because we want to dive deep into like our values and say like, what really matters to us as human beings, and do those agreements honor those values? Or are they just, I need you to do this so I can stop feeling jealousy. It's like, are they just serving our ego or stunting our growth? So we want all of our requests of each other to come from a deep sense of like our needs and our values, which is why I want to, talk about the 6 basic needs.
You did offer questions. Is there anybody that had questions about
or wanted to add to? I know it's a really long, deep conversation, but
yeah, Marina.
Great.
Go ahead and unmute. Hold on.
There we go. Yeah. I'm really resonating with what you're saying now, Kamala Devi, is that it's not just often naming the need. I've been practicing NVC for some time now, but it's like going through that cycle a few times. It's like, what's my emotion, what's my feeling, and what's my need? And it's not just stop doing that or bringing a new agreement, but going through that cycle a couple of times. Because the needs do change, and it's almost like we deepen them every time we do that whole introspection.
Yeah,
So that's been very helpful.
I'm really willing, if this is a hot conversation, because obviously this is a life study, and in next month we're going to talk about like conflict resolution, and I'll likely bring NVC back up in that context. In the context of just healthy communication, I like what you're saying, like it's a tool for self-awareness, you know, getting more in touch with our needs, and self-empathy, which is huge. But I want to offer you this tool. Anytime you're feeling, it's because you're needing. So this is like a NVC meme or motto, is you're feeling because you're needing. So when you're like, I has feelings, I don't know what's going on, then you go, whoa, there must be some unmet need. And then you get to drop in and go, well, what's off? What's unmet? And then, you know, at the higher level, we can get into, well, now I've got this need to be a priority, like it's really activated. And you can either go into, Michael, you need to make me a priority, or how can I find a lover, make me a priority, let me get this need met. Or you can go into this deeper work of like, oh, who would I be if I wasn't a priority? Like, can I make myself a priority? Can I be okay not getting that need met? You know, I mean, it's really a map to deep self-wisdom, because we realize that the things we think we need are often just ego tantrums. And the true self, you know, is unless your basic lower Maslow needs are not being met, or unless it's like, hey, I'm not, like, without this, I'm not expressing my soul's purpose, and I need to rearrange the relationship so that I can be in my full dharma. Like, it's not necessarily a soul need. So I want to make that distinction as we move into the next piece, because Tony Robbins, which I have to say, like, I love Tony Robbins. I really have learned so much from him, but I have a hard time crediting him, because it's like he takes so much from so many different people. I don't even know if this is really his, but I will say, I will say this is.
No, I think Tony actually invented the word variety, and yeah. So these are the basic six needs. We can see you on the sides.
You know, when you hold those up, those are backwards, right?
But they might not be.
No,
Sometimes
they are.
Okay.
They're backwards.
They're not backwards.
Oh, they're not.
No.
They're just backwards to us.
Okay, got
On
it.
Facebook Live, they're backwards, but not on Zoom.
Thank you. Great.
So I'll put them back.
Okay, good.
So these are the basic six. You know, starting.
Do you want to go over them? You want me to? So let me go over to them, because there's an order to them.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So so at the very, you can almost look at Maslow's hierarchy with this, because at the very basic thing, there's this certainty. And certainty is also like
safety.
Like safety. Like we all know we need a certain, like, there's a consistency, a dependency. Like, there's a whole bunch of needs that fit into reliability, that fit into certainty, right? We're in these primary partnerships because we want a certain, like, we got a reliable attachment, right? And then there's something that happens that's almost counterintuitive, which is variety. And I actually would put uncertainty or freedom or adventure. Like, so I'm not crazy about variety as the title, but it's everything that looks like, I want to be wild, I want to be free, I want to be adventurous, I want to try. And like in poly, these two needs are like constantly conflicting, right? And what's important to note is we all have all six of these, but when we're in partnership, it often polarizes. So he'll take up the variety pole, and I'll be like, but I want the same consistent lovers and the certainty that they'll be there in deep relationships. And he'll be like, let's go swing, you know, like that. These two are typical. If I wasn't with him, I have other lovers. They're like, whoa, Kamala Devi, you're a big whore, you know, like you're really crazy. And they want more consistency. Like it really is, our partnerships will bring out the polarity of these two. And then what happens is significance and connection are also a different pole. Now, significance, there's something in both in the ego and the soul, the ego wants to be like special, wants to be different, wants to be unique. Well, the soul is unique. The soul knows that it has its unique flavor, but there's a significant, there's a pull in humanity to be absolutely special. And this becomes problematic when there's also deep, deep value for connection. Now, connection is like, we're all like, in the moment that we all closed our eyes and we all felt each other, it's like, we want to be moving as a group, and there's synergy and it's togetherness, and it ironically is different than I want to be the leader, or I want to be on top, or I want to be special. And so those two poles will fight each other in different ways. But connection is also like, you know, it's love, it's bonding, it's consideration and compassion. And so all of the needs around that. And then the final two of these, go ahead and hold it up, are what Tony calls needs of the soul. So both growth and contribution. It's like the soul wants to grow. It wants to evolve. It's part of our nature. And then we also want to give in such a way that, like, you know, we want to uniquely contribute to make the world a better place. And these two needs aren't so much as in conflict with each other as a question of which is, you know, because we can contribute, but then we're not like it's like learning and growing, you know. Learning and growing is the same one, but sometimes when you're giving, like me as a teacher, for example, I'm out in the world and I'm constantly giving and contributing. Well, when then am I at the foot of the guru actually taking care of myself and learning and growing here? So it's kind of like growing and giving. We have to do both in a certain balance. All of them are best in balance, but the idea is to grow towards, you know, we're happiest when we put growth and contribution in the center, or connection and contribution in the center. And we're miserable. People are like fucking suicidal when they need to put significance as their top goal. Like when they actually value, I want to be special, I want to be different, then they're constantly competing. They're constantly feeling like somebody's better than them. And it's just like, it's ugly. So there is definitely within this paradigm, even though this picture just shows a bunch of circles, there's a kind of a hierarchy to it.
Yeah, and a balance of polarity with each.
Yeah.
The two, there's three pairs basically.
Yeah. So a better model is, and I'll see if I can find it, but it's like a target with 3 different rings, and those different rings were, you know, pull us in different. Anyway, the reason I'm teaching you this, not as commonly known, is that when we know these needs, these 6 needs, it shortcuts the whole NVC process when we're like, I'm having feelings. And then we can tune in and be like, wait, which of these 6 needs are not being met? And we don't have to know, like, you know, so many thousands of flavors of, you just got to get a sense of, oh, it's because I'm putting my attention on variety right now. It's like I need that variety and I'm feeling stuck and I need autonomy or whatever it is. And you can kind of balance yourself out by seeing the whole picture again. So, unless you have any questions about that.
Any questions out there? Okay.
How many people have heard and worked with that model before?
The Tony Robbins one?
Yeah, good. Good, a few of you. Excellent. Yeah, I find that it in the poly scene, obviously he doesn't teach it that way, but it up-levels the conversation because it simplifies keeping track of all of our beloveds and what their needs are. Otherwise, we go fucking schizophrenic.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
So, Kamala Devi, I just want to check in what I'm hearing you say. I'm hearing you say that if you can identify and get connected to which of these 6 basic human needs are not being met, it can fast track and simplify your communications around compassionate communication or nonviolent communication without having to go into the specific of the type of acknowledgement versus recognition versus whatever. Just go general, and you find that that's more effective?
Yeah, I find it shortcuts and fast tracks, increases both the self-awareness and our ability to communicate to our partners. And what we need to do as partners is accept that all of those needs are really valid. And there's a tendency to be like, oh, well, you just need to be significant. Get over that. I mean, I've been in I actually recently got told by a lover, like, hey, get over your need to feel special, because that's just an ego need, right? And it's like, needs are precious. Needs are pointing to like vitamins that we didn't get as children and deficiencies that we carry as adults. And if we're in a conscious partnership, yeah, I want to take care of my own, like I want to balance out my ego's need to feel special. I don't want it to let it run me like a child, but
it exists.
It exists. And part of being in partnership is like being with his inner child, his, you know, little boy who has needs and my little girl who has needs, and honoring that too, not shaming it. Needs don't make me needy. And like getting that if your partner has needs, it's time to slow down, stop, listen. If you can nurture that and they feel special, then all of a sudden, like they can get more in touch with the uniqueness that is their soul, that, you know, that need kind of falls away. It can help mature that need.
And I'm going to say something about Polly because I know it's really significant at this point, at this juncture. What you were asking about, Greg, about using these needs. When we feel jealousy, for instance, in poly relationships, and we're feeling these things, if we can look back to the unmet need and use that model of Tony Robbins to figure out, you know, the kind of like grouping of the type of needs that are there, it makes it super easy to realize what's going on within us. Because a lot of times jealousy is like, fuck, what the fuck is going on? You know, I just can't track it. You know, I can't like make it work with the complicated tools of NVC or other tools. This is a way to like, when it's a gift when you feel jealousy. And I don't feel jealousy that often, but when I do, I'm like, wow, here's my opportunity. Let me get in there. What are those needs that aren't being met? And I can start looking at them, going down those, you know, those models, those tracks.
It's almost like a diagnostic. Like if we're talking about tools, it's like, oh, okay, run it through this diagnostic, and then you'll know how to fix it.
The car metaphor.
Yeah.
So they get the computer, they put it on there, and it says, okay, this is your need.
Yeah.
You know, and this is the grouping of need. You know, it's like that.
Great. Any
awesome
other? I think we're gonna move on.
Yeah. So.
Oh, and Tony uses it, by the way, like the way he uses it is like radically to reorient your own values so that you're not, you know, he's trying to help people not need significance as much to move towards growth or connection in the center. And that's all valuable work. But I just think for our purposes, it's like, let's use it as a language to keep our partnerships in harmony, and let's accept that they have different needs in different order than we do, which will then manifest to like, I don't understand why you're needing this, but just get, oh, wow, how they've organized, their reality is organized differently, and how can I support them? Yeah.
And now we move into the very simple one. It's only two things.
Dyads.
The dyads. Very simple. So we have a...
Well, first, you've already been doing dyads. Those of you who've been doing the gratitude showers, it's basically like turn taking. Like, you know, I'm appreciating this about you. Thank you. I'm appreciating, you know, grateful that you have this. Thank you. And that's the nature of a dyad.
And if there are some specialized dyads, one of them is it's called the relationship evolving dyad. And you would ask, I'll just say the question.
Why don't we model it?
Okay.
Here's how this one goes. And this is actually one, okay, this is such an incredible power tool for bonding and creating harmony that I want everyone to do it this week. And to do it for a period of 20 minutes minimum. So we would set our timer, you know, Michael and I would be like, yeah, this is our time to do our practice. And it would start.
Yeah. Like this, and we do it. Yeah, we do it with our family. We do it with our friends when we're on car drives. We use this one a lot. So tell me something that you like about me.
I love your sense of humor. You always make me laugh, and you see the world as an absurd and funny place.
Thank you. Tell me something that you think we agree on.
I think we agree that doing this relationship deep dive is actually so supportive to our own growth. Just being in relationship and having the reflection of other relationships allows us to see ourselves more multidimensionally.
Thank you. Tell me something that you want me to know.
I want you to know that even though my yoni's off commission, that I want, like that, especially before you leave for Spain, I really want to be connected physically, and I want to find other ways to like open the sexual channel, like so that that feels like it's open even without my yoni.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great.
And then tell me something you like about me.
I like that you that you're always looking at the world in such different ways. You know, very, very non-linear and very, very different than our culture.
Thank you. I would then proceed the next two questions, which is
tell me something you think we agree on,
and
tell me something you think I should know.
And by doing, and then and the only thing he's allowed to say is thank you, unless he didn't hear something, then it'd be like, what? But there's no cross talking. And the cycle would turn over and I would ask the same three questions and he would just go a layer deeper. And so we would deepen and deepen for 20 minutes. We usually, the way Charles Berner, who's the creator of the Enlightenment Intensives, he did these at 40-minute intervals, which I highly recommend. If you can do it for 40 minutes, you'll find, I mean, it's so, you just need to experience it yourself and you need to experience it more than once. The value of this is so profound. So.
Yeah, and the way that it's used in Enlightenment Intensive, the questions are usually different. It's, you know, tell me who you are, and you're going back and forth, you know, or other questions.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole list of relationship-related ones that Charles Berner has. And if you light up, if this really turns you on, I'll send you privately a list. Happy to do that for the group. But try it this week. And the other thing that we want to do is that's one homework.
Yeah. So the other one is to choose one of the models and do some practice.
Yeah. More specifically, having gone through these different models, you look at what's the most valuable thing in my partnership, what's the missing ingredient, what's the tool that needs to be sharpened. Because a lot of you have like you're like, oh, there's a saw I already have in my toolbox, but that saw is useless unless you sharpen it this month. So you need to self-assess, and this is the way that we're gonna end this call the same way that we'll do every call, which is where you choose what your homework is based on, hey, what do I want to work on for my work table? And what does my partner want me to work on? You choose one thing that's the most valuable thing. So take a moment now, like if you did the work table, to look at what you wrote down for communication, you know, like, and it might be like, oh my God, whatever I wrote down is irrelevant. Now that I've listened to this call, this is the most important thing. But we're going to go around the circle, and I want you to choose and speak out and make a commitment. You can change it if you want, but to change it, actually post it on Facebook. I want to hold you accountable to making that one commitment this month. So
that one commitment is.
So for why don't you and I give an example, and then we're going to go around the circle and talk about that. So my one commitment is that I am committed to asking questions. Instead of telling Michael what to do, I'm going to ask questions, or telling him, like, it just be more curiosity, more questions, more like invitations that aren't, you know, directives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm going to witness Kamala Devi in full presence, or I'm going to listen to her much more deeply. And listen, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So having expressed these two things, the way that you do your homework isn't just an intention that you state here. It's something that I want you, like, through the week in your deep dive journal. Every time you do that, you make a note. Like some of you have a deep dive journal that has a separate column with a star on it. And that column you can use to be like almost like a making deposits in the love bank. Every time you do something that waters your relationship, you write it down. And by writing it down, it reinforces it, it celebrates it. It's like keeping a log of like, wow, I'm actually investing in this relationship. So all month, every time I ask Michael questions or I'm curious, I'm gonna write that down because I'm like rewarding myself. And he gets to, when he does it, like he gets to write it down in the journal as well. And it'll help foster it. And then at the end of the week, you can be like, yeah, I did it. Or you'll be like, oh shoot, my journal's empty. I didn't do it. I got to start, right? All right. So
I'd like to ask if anybody has any questions about the homework, any clarifications on it, so that you can really.
Yeah. Before we go around the circle.
Yeah, and then we're going to go around the circle, and I'm going to ask a takeaway, and what your personal homework is. But if anybody has any questions about what
everyone's got it.
You guys are great. Lisa.
Just to make sure I heard you accurately. So you want us to pick something from our own work table that we've identified that we want to work on, and then that will be something that will be the focus for our month, and then our partner will pick something from like what they've identified as what they want to work on.
So no, yes and no.
Almost.
You're choosing one thing all month that you want to work on. It may be something that you already said, this is what I want to work on. It may be, wow, clearly my partner wants me to work on this, so that's what I'm going to choose. But you're only choosing one thing that's going to be most leveraged, and each partner gets to choose that thing. You can't tell your partner, this is what I need you to work on. It's like, you've already told them that by doing the work table, right?
Well, yeah. So this is assuming the work table work is complete, which we're not totally complete on. So I feel like we can't.
And I would say for the two of you not having completed it, based on this call, use your intuition. What's the one most valuable thing? You make that declaration. And if at any point anyone wants to change their homework, all you have to do is make a post on Facebook and say, hey, I'm updating. My homework is now this. Okay, great.
Yeah. Okay.
Sweet. So let's go around the circle, starting with Tal and Alex.
You're going to give us a minute to think about it or talk or something before
we'll last.
You're going to be last.
You'll be last. Yeah, so take your time.
Okay.
My homework is going to be being careful with my words when in a reactive state.
Ooh.
And then I am going to make a note of being much more mindful about cleanliness and organization around the house, and when I do a job, be thorough about it, so I don't need my beautiful wife to come up behind me and have to finish up my rugged edges.
Sweet. So I'm gonna pause for a minute, because if that is the most leveraged thing, like if you're like, hey, that would keep us in communication harmony, awesome, I trust you. But in the scope of the year, we're gonna get into life. Like 1 month, we're gonna be like, let's talk about lifestyle and how we clean the house and how that will be the subject, and that might be like, hey, this is when I'm gonna work on that. This month is an opportunity for you to actually upgrade your communication. Right. And so I'll invite you to find a communication-related task.
Okay, so
yeah,
I will. I'll be thorough about timeliness. If an agreement is broken or if I need to update something, timeliness will be very prompt.
Excellent. That's actually a function of impeccability, which is one of the 4 agreements. Perfect example. Yeah. Sweet.
Nice. Why don't we go to next to Marina?
Yeah, I think what I'm feeling drawn towards is not to take anything personally. That's always a big one. And then something that I'm working on is communication, boundaries, and desires, really daring to speak my truth. And, being really clear on what the needs are and communicating that.
Sweet. Good.
Beautiful.
You're when you choose 3 things, I think that's great. But as long as you have a priority on what your top one is this month.
Yeah. Yeah. Being clear on my needs and communicating those.
Excellent. Thank you.
Perfect. And Greg.
Perfect. Mine's the same thing, is to clearly, unapologetically state my boundaries. And I've really been, we benefit a lot, Kamala Devi, from the red, yellow, green metaphors. We've been really using that a lot. And to be specific is like when I realize that a boundary is either a yellow or coming up on a red, is to go back to the 6 human needs and find out which of those needs is being fired up. Excellent. And connect the two.
Excellent. Oh, that's really good.
Yeah. Awesome. Good. How about Jonathan and Kirsten?
Yeah. I'm going to work on, I like how you put the NVC model of the story I'm telling myself is, what I feel is, what I really need is, and my request. I'm going to work on going through that so I can be more expressive as to where I'm at and what I want.
Excellent.
Great.
And I liked the third question of the dyad. I thought was most important. Tell me something you want me to know. Because Jonathan and I have very different communication styles. So this is actually probably the most area of growth that we need to work on. And that's going to give me more of an understanding of his inner core and inner desires and inner framework, his inner world. So
good. So to be clear, in addition to doing the 20-minute dyad practice, you're taking on the inquiry or the communication question, tell me something you want me to know in your relationship this month. Is that it? Awesome. Good. So that it's really fun because Jonathan had mentioned he's interested in Charles Berner's work. One of Charles Berner's pristine, he calls them clearing conversations, and it's simply that. It's tell me something you think you should tell me. That question back and forth in the same dyad practice, tell me something you think you should tell me something, clears all kinds of it gets people like, wow, we're now up to date, we're now current. So that's an example of one of his dyads. Another example of a dyad that I want everyone to know, because it can be like if you're not feeling like you're on the same page or you're feeling like there's static between you, it's called the withholds process. And many of you already know this and use it, but for review, it would look like.
I have something I've been withholding.
Would you like to tell me?
Yes. I have been wanting your taco and I'm just not getting it.
Thank you. So it's those questions in sequence. And the reason it has that extra, would you like to tell me yes, is to really make sure that, hey, I'm in the right state. I'm open to receive. And then withholds it's almost like a kind of an amnesty, because he's told me something, in this case, something I might have a lot to crosstalk on, but there's no cross-talking. You told me something, I say thank you, I share a withhold back, but we're not going to get into the discussion or argument or fight, because a lot of times we withhold, sorry to cut you off.
Yeah.
But we withhold because we're afraid, oh no, what would my partner say? Well, this way they don't get to say anything. You just get to release the withhold.
Yeah. And it's imperative that you don't, withhold something about her withhold. Yeah. You're not going back and forth. It's one directional and that's it. So, and sometimes you can even put, rules like you don't want to talk about it for 48 hours or, whatever. But you basically just don't do it at all.
I rarely teach this. I just have to say, I rarely teach this in workshops anymore. It was our favorite tool. It was profound. But then one day we were doing a relationship workshop, and I said, okay, who wants to demonstrate this? I got a couple in the center of the room, and he says, there's something I've been withholding. She says, would you like to tell me? He says, I would like a divorce. And then the rest of our afternoon was all about their divorce. And so I just also want to say that, we
be good to each other.
Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Be good to each other.
All right. After Jonathan and Kirsten, who's next?
It's Sharmila and James.
Sharman.
So we didn't entirely finish our homework, but I will feel into it more. I feel like my goal for the month is staying in communication even when I go into shutdown.
Sweet. So how will you know that you're, I guess.
Always know I'm in shutdown. There's no question mark.
Okay, and how will you know you're staying in communication? Like, I'm gonna just ask you for another level. Like, what are you gonna do in that moment?
The one thing works is to actually like talk about being in shutdown and then like make space to talk about what's causing it.
Mm-hmm. Good. Yeah. So we'll talk more about this next week, which is like when the breakdowns happen, how do we lean in? Because that's actually the number one thing they found about couples that stay together is, do they lean in or do they lean out? And so what you're talking about is a little bit it's perfect. It's like what we're going into next week, next month. But you're actually committing to say, when I'm shutting down, I'm going to share about my shutdown. I support that. That's awesome. How about for you, James?
I think my main one is to shorten the time frame between when I feel things and when I express them.
Ah, nice.
Specifically trying to keep that within like a 24-hour cycle.
Oh, all right. So I was going to ask, how long has it been? And what if this month you really try to shorten that quite a bit? Like, what would be the ideal? What would be the ideal?
That is quite a bit. What are you talking
It
about?
really is quite a bit.
You know, like most of the time, I would want it to be shorter than that. I also want to leave room for how busy my life is and the fact that there's just realities of when communication is actually possible. But yeah, I mean, the practice is generally like, as I feel things, to be willing to share them without wanting to take the time to make sense of it all, figure it out, process it on my own, but like actually have the opportunity to know where I'm at.
Yeah, and I want to honor, and this is to model for everyone, that some people are internal processors, some people are external processors, and we really want to honor that. What I think is relationally relevant is when your feelings are arising, having permission to be in what you call the GUI, like, means that you're fostering more vulnerability and more connection, as opposed to internal processors who then go kind of aloof and activate an abandonment script, or a disconnect. So we want to honor that you're still an internal processor, but how to express yourself in the messy and vulnerable, which endears connection, right? And doing that sooner. And so I guess it's a similar question to Sharmila, which is, what does that look like? So when you're having feelings, is it, then maybe even, you might even say, hey, this month, trying one of these tools, which is, I have a withhold, and that way you don't have to process it. You're like, hey, I just want to get in the practice of letting them know what's happening for me, and we're not going to untangle it or unpack it.
Yeah,
that's one of the best uses
Quick
of that tool. Yeah.
Awesome. What about Lisa and Greg? Are you guys ready?
First. Yes, I am going to focus on mindfulness around Lisa's love language. I really like what you talked about around the shadow aspect of it, and so paying attention to that on a daily basis. I'm aware of what hers are, but I think there's more I can do around paying attention to negating them or that shadow aspect.
Great. Good. Sweet. Okay. Thank you. So mindfulness on the love languages. Excellent. Lisa.
Yeah, I have a little twist that I could use some coaching on. So what I would like to focus on is articulating my needs. And I think I withhold because I know he has a lot going on, right? So I'm like, whatever, I have a story that creates a scenario where I don't communicate my needs or even take the time to really get clear. And my little like thing that I could use some coaching on, or I think we could use some coaching on, if I may say that, is timing of these communications. Like this is a huge challenge for us of creating time to fucking communicate. And so like I'm hearing everybody's things and I'm like, that all sounds great. When do you all do that? Like, you know, and because one of the things that I really want to work on is honoring Greg's needs around communication and times of day, and like not wanting to be pulled out of the present moment when, like he's doing a lot of work to get clear on that for himself. And I want to honor that, so like, yeah, so I'm feeling a little challenged, like with the assignment overall, because I feel like that's a big thing for us.
I'm stoked that you're speaking into it, Lisa. I happen to know you're not alone in that. And God, there's this book. Hold on, what's his name? His name is John Gottman. So he's this relationship expert that was looking at like really why people divorce and why they stay together, and where everybody says, oh, communication. Like he was actually saying it's not how they communicate. Like there's tons of couples that fight all the time and they fucking, stay together. It's not about how you communicate. It's about how involved and interested you are in your partner's like the inner happenings of their life. And what he found on No Uncertain Terms is the couples that actually lean in and have a map of know what's happening in each other's inner worlds, they're the ones that are the happiest, even regardless of how they fucking communicate. And in order to have a map of what's happening, you have to have times in which you're not even talking about the fucking like the relationship has its own communication that's necessary, but what really makes happy couples is that you're hearing about their work frustrations or their enemies or their insecurities or their parents or and it's really interesting because we didn't make that distinction in this call, but there is we're communicating about the relationship versus we're communicating about life in general and just staying connected and just hearing what's in each other's hearts. And so I want to encourage everybody to actually assess, like, when do we communicate? Michael and I have made it a deep practice to just go, like, when we see each other in the middle of the day, we have the luxury of working from home. It's like, let's go for a walk. And we catch each other up on what's happening. But most people, it's at the end of the day or at the beginning of the day, before going off to work. It's like, what are you up to today? What's your schedule? But those practices plus a weekly, like, kind of, oh, what's happening for the week, what, bigger, higher level conversation. That's another thing we didn't talk about. Michael and I have a what we call an RPM every week, where we're looking at our week and planning and getting.
We spend an hour a week doing RPM of the things that we need to do during the week, and then we spend probably about an hour a week on scheduling too.
Yeah,
our schedules together,
which is
a little less than that. Yeah,
half hour, but which is amazing because, like, a lot of the, like, if you're working together, obviously we're teaching this class and we have, you home owning together, whatever you're doing, you want to have proportional time to be working on the thing you're working on, but then have time that is like personal and sweet, just to be friends, which is totally different than let's talk about other relationships and our relationship and how to upgrade, which is what we're doing in this class. And I know now this might sound overwhelming, Lisa, because like you're like, when do I have time? And we're like saying you need to make much, much more time for it. But
we do.
Yeah, but that's the thing is like, time is the stuff that life is made of.
It's all we have. Yeah.
And, if this is your life partner, that's who you want to spend, the bulk of your time, like, just sharing with and listening to. And if you have different communication styles or, circumstances that are making that hard, reprioritize, because for health and longevity of the partnership, that's what's going to make the biggest difference, is just leaning in and sharing.
And, it reminds me too, like we do a lot of ritual together. And we're going to be doing, we're teaching those doorways, in the rest of this
in
course.
coming months, yeah.
Yeah. About how to do those, but those rituals should be together. And even if it's things that are, right now kind of mundane, like you might have your own schedules, start doing some of those things together. And create those, make those rituals together. And I have the same issue, I'm a poly guy, and I have, a lot of those things are outsourced to my other lovers. And I'm realizing, hey, to really go deep with Kamala Devi, I need to bring those rituals back to her. I need to be getting those needs met from her. We had one of our therapists told us that, this idea of being independent and being able to take care of yourself, it's bullshit. We're pack animals, and we need to have other people to fulfill needs for us. And for that to happen within our primary partnership I think is absolutely critical.
Mm-hmm.
That it can't happen with, outsourced to the other, when we've done that, it just has not worked well.
I want to share how Tony Robbins talks about this, like meeting each other's needs, because, from my poly perspective, sitting in his relationship course, it sounds like codependent mumbo jumbo. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous, but there's deep fucking wisdom in it, right? He basically says your partner's needs are your needs. And the wisdom is like, when my partner comes to me like with this and is like today, actually, Michael's like, I want spiritual growth. I want to realize my potential as a spiritual being. And like, there's a voice in my head that's like, yeah, well, that's between you and God, right? Like, that has nothing to do with me. Like, there's a voice in my head, but then there's a teaching that Tony Robbins has around, like, if your partner's having a need and you've married your partner, that need becomes your need as well. And the beauty of that is that, it's like, oh, my partner, as different as they are, and as much as I think this is my spiritual teacher, it's like, wait a minute, this person actually compliments me and brings into my life values and ways of being that are opposite of mine, which grows me to be more enlightened because I get to see the world through their perspective. So I know this is high philosophy, and the question and the coaching is like, but when and how? And on the practical front, it sounds like both of you may want to make time together to just talk as your top homework priority. Like, this month is like, how do we prioritize just spending more time talking about our feelings?
One of the things that resonated with me that you shared was the different types of communication, like that you spend an hour, you said sharing about your week, and then, which I thought was like scheduling, but then you said, no, we spend then another 30 minutes to an hour on schedule, right? And then there was a different conversation around like friends and, just what's going on in my life. And I think that's where, feel free to obviously jump in here, where our challenge is, because it's not that we have complete lack of opportunity to talk. But it's like, when we have that opportunity, it's like, what do we do first? How do we cover all the bases, and how do we feel connected and do the logistics and do all the things, and that's
the balance. I think the healthy balance is there's a degree of process, right? Like, we're extraordinary couples, and it's going to take some process. That's sort of the maintenance under the hood, kind of working on the relationship processing. There's got to be play. There's got to be like, we're enjoying doing something together, and it's fun, and it's like it's like a nutrient that can't be skipped. And then process, play, and then there's a productivity. Because if we were just process and play, I would feel empty. Like, Michael and I are really here for peace on earth. We want to be contributing, so we work together on things that are meaningful to us, right? So the combination of those three, which is like your purpose, processing and play, is and having those balanced is up to you guys to find the right balance for that.
I'm getting a hit here too, Lisa and Greg. We're talking about language now, okay? And when I learned Spanish as a language, I knew it was more important for me to do even 5 minutes a day than it was to do like an hour at the end of the week. It was really critical. And I'm really feeling with you guys that if you can, you know, carve out like 5 minutes a day and do something really, really focused in that, you know, time, figure out what that most important thing is, and just, you know, if you can carve out 5 minutes a day, I think it's going to really lend to you guys. So that's my hit on it.
You know, you guys figure out the time proportions relative to, you know, what all you've got. But I like your suggestion of more frequency, because any language practicing, you want to keep the repetition, and also be with any language, like, be okay to like mess up and to be like, wow, this really sucked, or it feels in the beginning like it's less connecting, or now I really see how our differences are even bigger. Like, it's okay that in the beginning of starting new communication habits, you know, it's building a muscle, and the muscle is going to be sore and uncomfortable.
Yeah, I really resonate with that, and particularly the balance between them. I think doing something like, even if we took 15 minutes and just did 5 minutes of process, 5 minutes of play, 5 minutes of productivity, like as far as the conversation goes. Because I know, you know, one of the things that's a challenge for us, like, you know, we'll have a date night, you know, every Saturday night, and we'll get in the car and start to drive off to go see a movie or something. And, you know, 2 minutes into the drive, she starts talking about who's picking our kid up next week from school. And it just, like, for me, it just shuts everything down. Right. So, and there's a difference in the type of talk that we want to have. So I think having that balance, I think, would be great.
Excellent.
Sweet. All right.
Okay, so we've gone around the circle, and we're going to ask Todd and Renee to Facebook us what their homework assignments are. And the couple of announcements are that everybody also on Facebook, I posted all these memes, you know, there. So those are all quick reference on there. I want to have, I have announcements. Oh yeah. The privates. Those of you who we've had privates with are so rich. It's so helpful. Please get your next one scheduled. And then that link is also online, but it's really, really a good accelerator to this work. And then also, if we need to wrap up payments, we want to do that this month too. So let's have those conversations. So I think
and we're meeting again next week.
Right.
I'm going to be out of town. I'm going on a pilgrimage in Spain with my son. So I will not be on the call. But I'll miss you guys. I'll be thinking about you.
Yeah, before next week, please get that 20-minute dyad in so we can see how the dyads go. And then we'll mastermind deeper around, around communication. We'll hear what came up for you and see, maybe we'll put someone on the hot seat and, and see if we can all learn from them. I think we're complete, but I'd like 2 words for, of your takeaway as we go around the circle, and just say, just as we started, what 2 words are you taking away from this call?
We'll start with you, Tal and Alex. Oh.
Go for it.
Yeah, there you go.
Eager connection.
And love language and style of communication.
Thank you. How about you, Jonathan and Kirsten? You're muted for some reason. Oh, there we go. Have to unmute on your side.
Just unmute everyone else.
Trying is not doing it.
Did it. Express needs.
Oh, nice.
And I would say curiosity and observation.
Awesome. And you, Marina?
Interested in the other's perspective, or like different styles of communication, and just honoring that, understanding that deeper.
Nice. And Greg?
Practice and grace.
Hmm.
Beautiful. Sharmila and Jade?
Playfulness and vulnerability.
Awesome.
Unrestrained communication.
Unrestrained. Wow. All right.
Nice. And you, Lisa and Greg?
Communication and communication.
And New Hope.
Yay. Awesome.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to have such beautiful mirrors, and I'm looking forward to connecting again next week. So blessings this week. Oh wait, next week's Father's Day, so we'll be talking on Daddy's Day, I think, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah. So
I'm gonna be I'm gonna be gone. Getting out of town.
All right, love you guys.
Love you all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah. It's a recording.
Oh, okay, there we go.